today, and thank you, Max, for inviting me to do this, because it is kind of exciting. We have education grants and research grants back up and running this fiscal year, or next fiscal year, sorry. Anyway, so what I wanted to do is just do a quick overview of what the program is, kind of how our funding has come to be. And I know this will be a review for a lot of you, but I did see some names that I didn't recognize, so I didn't want to take for granted everybody knows this information. So I'll do that. Then I'll talk just briefly about what our services are, but really go into depth about what our education and research grants are all about, kind of how that process for applying will take place, and our timelines. So the Colorado Traumatic Brain Injury Trust Fund was passed into legislation in 2002. And the article and all that, if you want to look it up, is on the slides. And actually, Max will send these slides to you if you wish, so you can have these for future reference. Anyway, so it was what happened in 2002 when the law passed. It created a trust fund, and I'll talk more about that. Added surcharges to traffic offenses, and it created a board of directors, of which we have 13 board members, outstanding board of directors. And then designated how we allocate those funds. So we don't have, complete flexibility about how we allocate the funds, and we'll go into that. It also placed the program within the Colorado Department of Human Services, which is why I sit here, and I sit under the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. So going into surcharges, what we do is we collect $20 for each conviction of driving under the influence or driving while ability impaired. And I get this question all the time, so I'm just going to say it up front. This does include those who are convicted of driving while ability impaired under the influence of marijuana. So that law passing actually has potentially increased our revenue. We'll wait and see. So $20 for each conviction related to that. $15 for each conviction of speeding, and that includes both municipal speeding violations as well as state speeding violations. And then in 2007, a helmet law was passed, and we also received $15 for any conviction of a minor 18 or younger operating a motorized bicycle without a motorcycle helmet. And that builds our funds. And so when you look at allocation of funds, the statute indicates that we have to allocate a minimum of 55% of our funds to services for individuals with brain injury. And just kind of quickly related to this, because it's not our topic for today, but we provide for adults, we provide case management services, and we do that through the Rocky Mountain Human Services. And then we also provide classes, workshops. They do community drop-in hours. If anybody wants more answers related to our services, you can definitely, my contact will be on here, and Max Winkler obviously knows our services very well. So at any point, you guys can let us know if you have questions related to that. For our children's program, we do care coordination, and we partner with the healthcare program for children with special needs across the state and all the local county health departments. And we also provide education consultation and capacity building for our school districts. And we do that through an interagency agreement with the Colorado Department of Education. So our program is pretty strong. We have a great deal of referrals coming in. We're very excited about the services we offer through the funds that we get through the trust fund. But again, if you have questions specifically, please let me or Max know. Well, one last thing I'll say about that is the entry point for all our services, whether child or adult, goes through the Brain Injury Alliance of Colorado, and Max is the person who handles that. So if you are curious, you can definitely go to their website. They have all the information and applications there for you. So the other funding goes to a minimum of 25% support, goes to support research related to treatment and understanding of traumatic brain injury. And again, I'll go into depth on that. A minimum of 5% goes to providing traumatic brain injury education for survivors, family members, professionals, educators, and others in the community. So that's what we want to spend the time on today. As I said, education's 5%. So looking at the details related to our education program, and as Max said, we did take a year off last year in terms of announcing grants and awarding grants. It was twofold why we did that. One is our revenue did take a really dramatic decrease over the last couple of years, and so financially we felt it would be better not to do those grants this last fiscal year. And I keep saying fiscal year just so you guys are all clear. Fiscal year is July 1 through June 30th. So when you hear me saying a year, that's what a year means, and fiscal year is that time frame. So we didn't award grants our last fiscal year. Part of it, as I said, was financial. The other part was really trying to evaluate the effectiveness of the grants that we've been awarding and looking at our process. And so at the end of this presentation, I will talk about our new web-based process for application, and we're hoping that this is going to make it easy for you. That was a big key, but also that it would help us really kind of monitor our grants more effectively. So we're excited about that process. But this year, we will be announcing new grants, and I'll get into the timeline in a minute. So normally we award grants annually. Hopefully we're back on track with that. The funding maximum for an education grant is $10,000, and I'll just say that minimum, we've had grants come in just for a couple $100, so it can be anywhere in that range. And the topics range from prevention to intervention, and all age categories, kind of all aspects of brain injury. What's really exciting about our education grant process, as we started to really look at where our funds have gone, we have covered every region in the state with education grants. So we appreciate that everybody's applying, and we're hoping that that process just becomes more and more easily. So some of our priorities, and this will be important if you're interested in applying for an education grant, we did as a board set out priorities for next year in terms of what we're hoping to see education on, and this is all related to different work we do in the community, what the Brain Injury Alliance is hearing as needs, and our stakeholders are hearing as needs. So the following are our priorities. We would like to do some more education of mental health providers, and that's actually something that a lot of the community mental health centers and community mental health providers are asking for. We also are interested in increasing our military and veteran education, either to those audiences or to professionals who interact with those folks. And then education to brain injury and aging. Aging is becoming the #1 cause or age group for sustaining new injuries, so we really want to be sure we're addressing that new population. Education for underserved populations such as Native American, African American, or other typically underserved populations in our community. Co-occurring brain injury and behavioral health. And for some of you who are maybe more active in our brain injury community, you may be aware that that's something that we've been working with the Healthcare Policy and Finance Department on, is increasing access to mental health services for those who have co-occurring brain injury and behavioral health concerns. And behavioral health, by definition, would be substance abuse, addiction, mental illness, etc. The other strong target area we'd like to see is homeless populations. We feel that we've done some work in outreaching to that population, but not a real effective measure at this point. So if people are connected to those individuals and those settings, that would be excellent. We're always looking for how do we ensure that our educational opportunities go beyond maybe a one-time shot, although those are okay. We know in-service training is important. But if you can look at developing online or electronic teaching media or modules that can exist beyond the one-time training, that's also encouraged. Finally, in terms of another target audience, first responders, law enforcement, and corrections. It seems that for some reason, all of a sudden I'm getting a lot of requests from that area in terms of education around brain injury, so that's pretty exciting. So those are our priorities for this coming grant announcement. So I just want to kind of go into our process, and then I'll do timeline. Basically, this will all be an online web-based application process. Once a person applies for an education grant, our grants are reviewed to ensure by us, Regina Rodriguez and myself, to ensure that all the requirements of the grant were met. And if so, then they go to a subcommittee of our board of directors. That subcommittee is reviewing mostly for content of the grant, less about did they remember to turn in everything, but mostly about is it innovative? Is it something that meets one of our priority needs? Is it in an area we haven't addressed before? Is the plan feasible? Those kind of things. So we have a pretty strong group of folks on our board of directors who takes a lot of time reviewing those grants. They do those individually first, and then we come back together as a group and discuss the results and come to consensus on which grants to fund. And those of you who have written grants in the past, you may be well aware of this, but we kind of have three options at that point. One is to say that we will accept a grant for full funding, meaning whatever you requested in your grant proposal up to that maximum of $10,000, we can accept that. Or we might accept a grant in concept and ask you to revise your budget for partial funding. We do that a lot, I have to say, because we're trying to fund as many grants as possible and get our grants spread out across the state as much as possible. So a lot of times we will ask people to revise their budget. Even if the budget's pretty sound, we might not have enough funds to fund everything we want. The last option is, of course, the grant could be denied. And usually we deny grants if we feel like it will be very difficult for someone to implement the grant, or if it's something that's not very novel or innovative and it's something we've funded in the past, or it might be just completely out of scope with our education grants. So those are kind of the three options once the grant is reviewed. So going into timeline, I want to stress, and I didn't put this on our slide, but it's really important that you understand that this is an estimated timeline, and it's a moving target because we're dealing with this new web-based system. And we're also dealing, because it's a new system within the whole Department of Human Services, we're dealing with that approval process here. And it's not fun. I don't know if anybody out there is dealing with government, but approval is a difficult thing to achieve. So I put this tentatively together, and you'll note that May 2nd is when I'm saying the announcement will happen officially, and that's Friday. So we'll see. We have to do some testing of the system first, and we still are waiting on our approval from CVHS. I will just say this, just keep checking our website, which is on this PowerPoint, and you can get that from Max, or the BIAC website, because we'll definitely have them posted as well. And if you ever are questioning, feel free to call me or Regina, and we'll let you know where we're at with this process. But hopefully as soon as possible, the official announcement will be made. Once the announcement is made, the applications will be due a month from that date of announcement. So you'll see here I put June 2nd, being hopeful that we're actually going to announce on Friday. But if we end up announcing a few days later, it'll be a month out from there. So know you'll have 1 month to complete your grant application. After we receive the grants, then the boards, first again, Regina and I will review it for accuracy and making sure everything's in place. But once that is done, then the board committee will take on the review process, and that review should be done within about 3 weeks after we receive the grants. So hopefully we'll be announcing if you're awarded your grant, or one way or the other, by July 2nd, a couple of months from the date of announcement. Regardless of any of this, we are really striving to have the grant start August 1st. And so if you are awarded a grant, there is a bit of a process to go through to get a purchase order in place so that we can get you set up. But we're hoping the grants will start August 1st, and they'll run through June 30th. And for those of you who've written grants before, you'll note that that timeline's a little different. We likely will go with this ongoing starting August 1st versus July 1st. It gives us a little time in our fiscal management system to deal with some other issues we have to deal with here at the state. Also, we've had a lot of education grants, and a July 1st doesn't seem very feasible for them. So, I mean, educators, excuse me, applying for education grants. So August 1st is the time frame, and hopefully that doesn't put a bind on anybody. Okay, so I just want to touch on a couple of important considerations in terms of education grants. One thing is that all funds through the state are reimbursed. We do not pay anything up front. So if you are considering applying for an education grant, you must know that your agency has to cover the cost up front. And once that cost is incurred, you can send us an invoice and we will reimburse you. So the second point is individuals can apply. We have had individuals apply. However, because of this reimbursable issue versus cost up front, we do encourage you to partner with an agency to do that grant. And if you guys have, if there is an individual out there who is interested in applying for a grant, this is maybe more detail than most people need. So give me a call if you're interested in that, and I can explain a little bit more about our thoughts behind that. It's mainly for the reimbursement of costs, and also because it's hard to sometimes carry things out as an individual. But we can chat at that more if people have specific questions. My third point is innovation, innovation, innovation. We're really striving to ensure that we're not duplicating educational efforts that are out there. So you all have to do kind of due diligence in your application process. And that is to really do some searching to make sure an idea you have hasn't already been done. And if you're really questioning that, you can always call me. And if I know it's been done, then I'm going to let you know that. But we are really wanting to see some new educational efforts out there. And the last point with education grants in terms of considerations is in-kind support. We've had some outstanding grant applications that do an excellent job in terms of not relying on the trust fund dollars fully to fund the initiative you're hoping to do. We can do that. That's not a problem. So don't be scared away if you don't have anybody in-kind supports or that kind of thing. But if you think about what you put into it beyond trust fund dollars, almost always people put things into grants beyond the dollars you receive from them. Please make a note of that, and it's on the budget form you'll see when you go in to apply. It really looks very good to our board if you're trying to match funds or you're indicating how much time you're putting in pro bono, etc. And also looks good to our legislature. All of our grants get reported out to the legislature once a year, so that's important for us to be able to report as well. Okay, moving into research grants. So again, just to reiterate, research grants are a minimum of 25% of our funds. So again, we are very fortunate this year that we are able to announce research grants for next fiscal year. Actually, the application process will begin next fiscal year. Funding won't occur for another year after that, and I'll get into the timeline. The research grants take a much longer time to review and get approval through contracts, so it takes almost a whole year by the time we announce. Okay, so currently we are going to be announcing for 2 levels of research grants. Level 1 is $50,000 a year for up to 2 years, and that's for a total of $100,000. And level 2 is $150,000 a year for up to 2 years, so a total of $300,000. Know that that does not include indirect, but we do put a cap on indirect of 25%, so it would be $100,000 plus the 25% of indirect, $300,000 plus the 25% of indirect. And the indirect piece has been kind of challenging, but it seems like it's been working out pretty well for institutions. Okay, so our research priorities are as they always have been, and that is we are looking to fund basic science, clinical science, health service, and evaluation, our outcomes evaluation work. And so again, it can be all levels of research that we're looking to fund. If you think about that first level, feasibility studies are a good way to go, maybe looking at an existing database of research, etc. So we're looking for a diversity of programs and research ideas in that area as well. Okay, so in terms of our process for research grants, we first ask the researcher to submit a letter of intent. And this letter of intent is a maximum of 10 pages, so it's not too onerous to write. We just want people to be as concise as possible and clear in terms of methodology, etc. That letter of intent is reviewed by our evaluation and research committee, and that committee is comprised of folks who have done extensive research and evaluation themselves. They are looking again to ensure that the letters of intent have sound methodology, they're feasible, they can come in on budget, at least by first glance, and that they're innovative as well. At that point, after the committee reviews, there's 3 things that can happen. You could be invited for writing a full application. That's a typo on my slide. It says full award. It should say application, because the next step is to be invited to do an application. You could be invited to revise your letter of intent, and we do allow for 1 revision to a letter of intent. And this happens fairly often, that people need to revise their letter of intent, and partly it's hard to be too clear on a 10-page letter of intent, so sometimes we just have questions. Or it could be rejected outright, and you'd have to reapply the next application cycle with a different grant application. So once you're invited for a full application, to submit a full application, that application then gets reviewed by external reviewers. We strive to, as much as possible, make this process conflict of interest free. which is challenging in the research world because it's a small world in traumatic brain injury. So oftentimes our reviewers are external reviewers from other parts of the country or even other countries. We typically have a panel of 3 reviewers, and we have each reviewer do an independent review of each proposal, and then they do a panel review and panel discussion of those proposals, again coming to consensus about funding. So at that point, a grant application could be recommended for funding or denied. We do not accept revisions to full applications. So at that point, it's either you're going to be funded or denied. Occasionally, we would ask for some budget clarification, so that might come your way if accepted for funding, but typically they're funded in full. Okay, you'll see I bolded and underlined estimated here because we are in the very beginning stages with our web development in terms of the online application process, so all of this is subject to change, but again, roughly speaking, here's the timelines we're hoping for. We hope to have our official grant announcement up by August 1st, and we will be trying to update our website as much as possible to let you all know when those will be coming, kind of save the dates kind of ideas, so people can stay attached to this and keep on top of it. We would then be asking for letters of intent by September 5th. The board would review and give feedback by September 19th, and if you have a letter of intent that needs to be revised, that due date would be the 22nd. No, I'm sorry. That would be really fast. We will let you know by the 22nd. Revised letters of intent would be due by October 3rd. So you'll only have a few weeks to get the revised letter of intent done, but we're pretty specific in our questions. Let's say that your revised letter of intent goes through all applications, or your revised letter of intent, sorry, getting all messed up here. Invitation for application will be made on October 8th. So by October 8th, you'll know one way or the other if you're invited to apply for this grant. So once you know, then all applications will be due, whether you had to revise your LOI or not. They're all going to be due on December 12th. So it gives you about 2 months to complete that research application. Then we'll do our panel reviews in mid-February. Awards would be made the beginning of March, and then from March until July is when we are going to be entering into contracts with those awarded, and it takes that long with the research grants. So that's why there's such a discrepancy in our time. So that's kind of a rough timeline. I just wanted to say a couple more things about the research grants in terms of things to consider. We will only accept completed applications, and this was really hard for me last time, not last year, but the year before when we did grants. Some grants came in and they were not complete and we had to deny them. And we have some flexibility here in this program, but we still are a part of state government, so we don't have complete flexibility. But hopefully the web-based application process will really help so that people have completed applications in. If you are not an experienced evaluator, and that's per our definition, which will be in the announcement handbook, you must partner with someone who's considered experienced. And by experience, just roughly and quickly, it's really someone who has published in the area of neurological science research or program evaluation research. And it's not too rigorous, but there are certainly folks who are excellent researchers and have done an extensive amount of research who are not published in this field. If that is the case, then you must partner with somebody who is published in this area. So again, when the announcement comes out, you'll see that definition in full. As I said, letters of intent, you'll have a chance for one revision. With applications, we will not have any revisions. The other change to our research grants for level 1 and 2 this round is that in the past we used to do a merit-based process, which got a little intense, I should say, because it kind of was first apply, first awarded if you met a merit level. This time they're all competitive. We will still have a minimum threshold score, and then beyond that, everybody's competitive. So just know if you've applied in the past, that's one significant change. Okay, just wrapping up here, I just wanted to touch quickly on what our new web-based model is. We are working with COGMS, which is Colorado Grants Management System. It is through our Office of Information Technology, which is a statewide IT program that all state departments use. It's web-based, and it's web-based from all aspects. Web-based at the time of announcement. For your application will be web-based. The reviews are web-based. Awards, contracts, and then monitoring the contracts. Also reporting is web-based. So for those of you who have had grants in the past, usually you receive an email from us. It's all been very kind of individually operated. That won't be the case anymore. Now you'll get ticklers from this web-based system telling you when a report's due, etc. We're also hoping that by using the system, again, it'll reduce some of the errors that people tend to have when applying for the grants, and we're just hoping it'll be easier altogether. We'll be curious what your feedback is, though, after this first year going through that. So step one related to applying through COGMS is that all agencies, all applicants must be verified, and I will put out very explicit instructions about what that is. But just know that that can take up to a week or so to get done, about 5 days, that verification process. We will put very clearly in the announcements the deadline for doing your verification process. You don't want to miss that, because if you're not verified by the time your grant submits, it won't submit. So we'll be very clear about that. I'm just going to give you a heads up right now. Obviously, the application will be online, and it'll be very easy fillable kind of fields, some checklists, some drop-down menus, etc. We will be making our award notification online. So again, you'll have to kind of get used to that it's coming from this source versus us sending you an email, which is what we're all used to in the past. And again, contracts and purchase orders will be happening through that web base, as well as your reporting. So we're excited about this. It has taken an extremely long time trying to get this up and running. And Regina Rodriguez, my contracts manager, has done the bulk of that work. But we really are hopeful that it's all going to run very smoothly this first year, but we'll be definitely looking for your feedback related to it. So that is a quick and dirty of the education and research grants. And if anybody has questions.
Yeah, I've got one here.
Okay.
The question is, do organizations have to get verified for each grant? Or if already using COGMS, will they be verified already?
I will double check that. I believe if already using COGMS, you will be verified already. But I will definitely double check that.
Great. Are there any other questions out there? Feel free to drop them. There's one. She asked if we will send the slides to all participants. Yes, we will. Absolutely. Another thing that's kind of exciting is I think I got it to record this time. So this hopefully will be the first Lunch and Learn that we've had that'll have a video recording to go along with those slides. So I will work on that hopefully this week, if not next week, and I'll get that posted and sent out to the mailing list. Any other questions out there? Great. I think this has been awesome, Judy. Thank you for doing this. We will work on getting this out to you guys as soon as possible. Thank you for coming. We are right at 12:30, so I know you all have to get back to work. But we will sign off for now, and I'll send out another invitation in the next month or two for another Lunch and Learn. So thanks a lot, everyone.